Welcome to Hey Sister. This is season 2, episode 1. The girls are back in town.
Whoop.
Hey sister.
Hey sister.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Courtney Lewis.
And I'm Carly Ferguson. Welcome to our Sisterly Phone Call Inspired podcast.
Hop on our calls each week as we interview qualified guest experts and discuss the meaningful and sometimes mundane aspects of our lives.
We're so excited to connect with you, sister. Let's get talking.
This is Courtney Lewis, and I'm here with my sister Carly Ferguson, and we are so glad to be back with y'all.
It's good to be back.
We have to give a shout out to our youngest sister, Cassidy, who has been keeping our Instagram alive and active with her happy pants dances for the past 4 months while we have been preparing for season 2. And we also enjoyed a little catch up with our families.
I think she's enjoyed the excuse to dance.
I know. I've been really grateful. Every time I open our Instagram, I'm like, oh, look, another video. And there's nothing else in our feed right now.
I know. It is just chock full of happy pants dancing, and it's so fun.
And it does make you feel happy. I've watched all of them along with my kids, and my kids are always like, oh, Aunt Cass can dance. I was thinking that today we could give an overview of our theme for season 2, plus give our sisterhood a recap of any important news or changes in our lives since our last episode of season 1, and some of our reflections on season 1 as well. So, Carly, why don't you explain our passion and focus for this season of Hey Sister and some of the topics we plan to cover with the help of knowledgeable guest experts, of course.
Sure thing. This season, our theme is connection. And Courtney and I really felt strongly about that. We have just honestly struggled with utilizing this virtual podcast platform as how can you realistically make connections with all of you sisters that listen. How can we make those connections with you? That's difficult. It's a dream for us to someday have in-person conferences and hop in social media. But we honestly believe in-person, local community, family connections are the most beneficial.
Yep.
Yeah, it truly is. I think about the sequoia redwoods, right? They can grow so tall and their roots are actually not deep. They intertwine with one another to create this root network system that allows them to grow so high in an area that otherwise they wouldn't be able to. I believe that we have so much strength in connection in our areas around us because we know our podcast isn't the most ideal way to create international friendships, right? That's a kind of tough thing to do. But we hope that within our Hey Sister community, this podcast will inspire you to take action to strengthen connections with your local spheres of influence. So that said, we still look forward to online conversations and in-person conferences with y'all, hopefully in the near future.
Exactly. Well, I think it's even evidenced that social media hasn't been our forte, given the fact that we were so excited for our Instagram presence to really be on fire while we took this break from the podcasting world. And as we've already said, Cassidy pretty much kept our Instagram alive. So big thanks to our youngest sister for keeping Instagram alive. But Carly and I just realized, especially with this break, that was a time that we focused more on our families and our local friendships. And I mean, even during the podcast recording, not to pat ourselves on the back, but it really was important to Carly and I during the podcast recording season 2 that we stayed connected with our local mom groups, local friend groups, our communities of workout classes. Like we've tried to stay involved in those things and we didn't want to lose those. And then when we took our break from the actual podcasting world, we thought that we would be more present on Instagram, but we just weren't as much as we probably could have been. I don't know. I would say should have.
Yeah, we don't have to. And that's always been my feeling. I think it's a great thing to have social media.
I love it.
I love it. I think it's a blessing. My husband works for Meta. Yeah. I am grateful for that. However, I think it should never feel like
the replacement.
Or like a requirement for us, as if that's some kind of indication of how social we are, right? I think what matters most are the people that surround you, your family, your friends, the acquaintances we meet. You can do so much good in those kinds of interactions. Always be aware of that. I know sometimes we can kick ourselves and be like, oh, I need to post more. Don't worry too much about that.
Let's just jump into from there, talking about this connection and how important we think that it is. Carly and I want to give y'all a little teaser as to some of the topics that we are excited to talk about this season of Hey Sister that have to do with connection. So for the month of April, this month, we are going to lay the groundwork and prepare ourselves to make connections. We've got great guest experts lined up, including a rock star life coach. Well, not that she is a life coach for rock stars. She's just a rock star of a woman.
That'd be pretty cool.
I mean, maybe she is.
Rock on.
Confidentiality. She might not just tell us that she's life coaching rock stars. I mean, she does live in California, so it's highly possible. And also we've got a great motivational author that is joining us this month. So they're going to help us build from the ground up to be ready for connection. Then starting in May, we'll have a different connection related theme for every month. So May, June, July, come back every month because there's going to be some really excellent topics. And just as a little teaser, in May, the focus will be on connections within the role of motherhood. Then in the summer, we look forward to talking about various connections we can strengthen while enjoying the great outdoors. We plan to talk about connections within our local church and school communities in the fall. And then leading up to the holiday season, we will talk about specific relationships we can fortify during that time of year. We've got a lot of great ambitions for this season, and we are so excited y'all are here for it. Now that we've given a little heads up about our plans for season 2, how about we take a minute and give a quick recap of our lives to date and also any fond memories or important life lessons that we've learned during season 1 that have fueled us to this point. I have to say, before I even talk about my reflections on season 1, Carly and I are really excited, and we could use your best wishes and prayers for us this weekend because she and I, along with our husbands, another family friend, are hiking the Grand Canyon in Arizona. It's a 19 to 20-ish mile hike, and we're going to descend the canyon, come back up. It is going to be probably the hardest thing I've ever done. I don't know. I guess I'll say that after we've done it. I'll say if it's the hardest thing I've ever done. Hopefully I'll actually do it. I keep joking. I'm like, I'm the weak link in our group. I'm going to be the one who's like,
oh, you're coming. I'm not going this alone. You're coming along.
Oh, I know I'm coming.
We're doing this together.
I'm going to be the one at the back. Give me a piggyback ride, Carly.
And we can just be there for each other. We'll be like, I got to go be with Carly for a second.
Whatever. You'll be the one saying, I'll go be with Courtney. I'll go babysit the one at the back.
I hear the views are going to be worth it. And we're going to be wanting to just keep going to see.
Yeah, I'm excited.
See all the beauty.
I'm going to have a flashback to when you and I ran the Cowtown Marathon together. And that was such a fun experience. But I remember feeling like you were like a horse ready to go. And I'm like, I'm going to keep my steady 20-minute mile pace. I was not fast. I don't know. I was jogging. My goal was I'm going to jog the entire thing. I'm not going to walk.
You did.
Step.
Yeah, we were.
But I think I jogged in place. I feel like towards the end, I was like, these are the smallest steps anyone's ever taken in their whole life. But we did it, and it was great. So that's going to be the Grand Canyon experience.
You know, Mom always said, when you talk and you work out at the same time, it's like 2 times the workout.
Yes.
So
I could have done it in half the time.
We talked the whole time. No one's going to say it's like you ran 2 marathons there.
Oh, sure. That's good too. Although I have to say, my friend of mine told me the other day, she said, nobody would run a marathon if they couldn't talk about it afterwards. I thought that was so funny because, you know, so many people have the 26.2 sticker on the back of their car. Like they run a marathon and they want to be able to
I don't
have
have a 26.2 sticker.
But you just admitted you ran a marathon. See, we all have to talk about it.
You started it. And
I did. Anyway,
I do have to hold back sometimes. It is a fun thing to say. I mean, that is true. That is true.
If you were told, though, you couldn't tell anybody you ran a marathon, nobody would do it. You had to keep it a secret. I was just laughing about it.
Me, though. I like hear that and I take it as a challenge. And I'm like, now I must run a marathon and tell no one.
Yeah, that is so you. Okay, so enough about our upcoming weekend. I just had to tangent there a little bit and get your well wishes for us. So as far as a quick recap of my life goes, I got chickens and I started homeschooling during this past 4-month break. So
you're just a homesteader.
I know. Those are 2 things I honestly never saw myself doing. So I can honestly say I've been pleasantly surprised by both because I love both of those things so much. And I definitely had huge hesitations about both. The chickens especially were just a one-day spur of the moment idea that I texted my husband about, and he shocked me and agreed to it. And that weekend we were out buying chicken coop and wire, and I was appalled that he agreed so quickly. But because he was willing to go forward. I wasn't about to say, I'm actually having second thoughts. But now we've got 4 chickens, including a cream leg bar that will lay blue eggs. And there's a chicken that will lay green eggs. And we've got Big Mama, who is the toughest chicken I've ever seen.
Might be a rooster.
Might be a rooster. None of them can be roosters, because if our HOA finds out we have a rooster, I mean, you can't really keep a rooster.
I mean, you're making a podcast and telling it on the podcast.
My HOA people are not our target demographic. I don't think, except for my
Here
neighbor.
We're talking about connections. We're like, but watch out.
Yeah.
Jen, don't tell them.
Yeah, don't say a word. Anyway, I will say, speaking of just tangents, the homeschool thing I probably could go off on a tangent about, so I will just leave that for another day, but I will sum it up with how my son explained our decision to his classmates when they asked him, dude, we're going to miss you. Why are you going to be homeschooled? And he said, well, Jesus Christ has been telling my mom to homeschool us a lot. And when he told me that he said that, I died laughing. So I was like, oh my goodness, these kids are going to think I'm totally crazy. So I know we've talked a lot on this podcast about following inspiration. So I just want to say that was one thing that I felt like I had an inspiration to do. I felt like I was having that personal call and I acted on it. So it was just kind of a funny moment. And to have your son say that he's telling his friends that I said that, I'm like, oh, they're going to think I'm a freak. But then I was like, that's so sweet that my son recognizes that I followed through on a personal revelation. And I felt kind of crazy, but it's been really a great experience. So even though I laughed really hard, I also am like, well, he's not wrong. And even though it made me grimace a little bit, I just wish I could have been there to see these 8-year-old boys' faces when he said that.
Oh, but I think that's like one of the most honorable reason to make a decision for something, because it's not by reason alone, right? It is.
Oh, no, definitely not.
So I think if anything, those little boys, they might have just been like, oh, okay, whatever. Yeah. Or they remember it. Maybe. And later on, they think on that.
Remember my old friend Cruz and his crazy mom? No, I still feel confident about it, but that's a quick recap of my life experiences to this point. And then, Carly, I want to hear your recap of your life and your reflections on season 1, but I'll give you a second to think about your reflections while I share mine.
Okay.
First off, I have to say, podcasting has brought me so much joy. And I'm so glad that we're back. My number one love of it, of course, is having a business and mission with my sisters. That has been such a true joy. And I love Carly and Cassidy so much. And it's been so fun to get to do recordings with Carly and Cassidy when she can join us, and also see her cute happy pants dances, and to have a vision for the future of all the things like Carly mentioned, like future conferences. It's just fun to have something to do with your sisters from birth. And the second thing for sure is connecting with our guest experts, because the whole point of this podcast, Hey Sister, is that we really do see all women as our sisters. So as much as I enjoy connecting with my birth sisters on a podcast, I also really do believe that we are all daughters of God, and I see more connection with women, including our guest experts, as sisters. So every time we have a guest expert join us, I see them as a child of God, and I see them as a sister on earth if it's a woman. We've had a few guy experts, but really I see them as sisters for all of our women guest experts we've had. I love women and fully believe that we can find something to relate to any other woman on. And third, I have to say, I selfishly enjoy the editing of episodes because it has been a form of art for me. And the last thing I'll say is that I don't mean to brag, maybe it's a slight humble brag, but I can honestly say that I have legitimately applied every single one of the calls to action that we've issued during season 1. I have grown as a person so much because of these calls to action. The 3 calls to action that come to mind immediately that have had lasting impacts are connecting with a friend who has been on your mind. And that was in episode 14, Socialite. And I love that episode because the call to action was to reach out to a friend or family member that you have been thinking about, but you haven't talked to in a long time. And so I called a cousin. As we've mentioned before in past episodes, there's 63 descendants on our mom's side. So we've got 59 cousins. And there are several girl cousins that are within 3 years of my age. And there was one cousin in particular that I haven't talked to in years. And so she came to my mind the week that we did that episode with Hanalei, Socialite, episode 14. And so I called that cousin, and it just was so ironic because I called her and she was in the middle of a layover at an airport, and we got to talk for an hour and a half. And it was such a light in my life that day. I just was so grateful for that opportunity. And then in episode 43, Sound of Music, the call to action was to observe how we use music in our life. And I loved that episode because it really caused me to do some serious reflection and introspection about the music I was listening to. And I made some changes, and that has made a huge difference in my day-to-day life. And then the third episode that comes to mind is episode 54, Safety First. I love that episode with Robyn Warner. And when we talked about safety, those practices that she talks about how to educate your kids and how to feel more prepared yourself, those pieces of advice were great, but her call to action was to get pepper spray. And I got it. Like immediately, I got pepper spray. I have worn it on my wrist with a little lanyard every day since, and I don't feel nervous anytime, anywhere. And I am a pretty anxious person by nature. Like I get nervous that I'm going to get jumped at any given second. If I ever have a $5 bill on me, I'm worried that I have "mug me" stamped on my forehead. So to be carrying pepper spray makes me feel like I can defend myself. And so I'm really grateful. Anyway, that's a little bit about my reflections on podcasting and a recap of my life. Enough about me. Carly, hit it, sister. Tell us what you've been up to and reflections on the podcasting world.
Sure thing. These past few months, my husband and I and a couple other partners have been working towards opening a rock climbing gym here in Waco. Woo-hoo! So we are gearing up to have our groundbreaking in the next couple of months. So just the final steps towards that. And once that happens, it's going to be so nice to be able to follow the progress and be able to see things taking shape and taking form. Because right now it's been behind the scenes.
Tell our sisters the name of your gym.
So it's Basin Climbing and Fitness. For now, right now, just on Instagram, and we have a website, but our Instagram is at Basin Climbing, and Basin as in BASIN. So that's really exciting. And I am doing some of the marketing for that. So that's been a creative pursuit of mine as of late. If you are interested in that, then you can look it up. And we could always use a couple extra cheerleaders. Doing something entrepreneurial takes a little bit of
atta girl.
Yeah, I know. We gotta gear up as best we can because it's going to be exciting. That's been the biggest thing. We are also doing some home renovation stuff here with our kitchen and doing it ourselves. So that has our kitchen in flux a bit, and it's hard. It's hard to have your house undone and just waiting for the next opportunity to paint or do the next thing so that it can be nice and tied back together again. And so much better than it was before. But as our mom liked to say, it's a sausage making process. You like it at the end, but watching it during is not so fun. So those are a couple of things that have been going on.
Our vegan mother, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah. She said it more often when she wasn't vegan.
Although you say sausage making process, I feel like I always remember being a bacon making process. But
Nope. It's sausage making.
Okay. Hey, Mom, if you're listening,
it's sausage.
If you're listening, Mom, you're going to tell us, is it bacon making process or sausage making? What is it you say?
I know it's sausage. Okay. I win already.
We will reveal the answer on Instagram.
Text her now. Do it. By the end of this episode, we'll have the answer.
All right, fine. Keep going with your update.
This is true sister connections here.
Okay, go.
Those were kind of the biggest things. We also got a dog, and we love her. Her name is Maple, like maple syrup. And she's a golden doodle, which is good because my husband is allergic to dogs. So the hypoallergenic nature is better. She's a doll. And she's a she, which I have 3 boys. So it's actually been kind of nice to have some pink in very, very small amounts. So that's a little bit about the Fergusons in the last little bit. But with reflections on season 1, I think a lot about how doing these episodes during the first season, there was just such a variety. And I really enjoyed that because it felt like every time we would jump on for an interview with these guest speakers and their insightful wisdom that they would share with us, it just had me on the edge of my seat. And I would want to hear more. And I thought about Alli Roper in episode 47. History is her story too. And she talks about how curiosity is so important. And she says that it is a connection with happiness too. And I totally agree with that. I think we should be staying curious. We should be on the edge of our seats. And so I love that. I also really loved, it was really cool. We found a lot of our experts either on social media or just like people that we've come in contact with in person. So they came from these interactions that we had, but some of them we had never met in person. And one of those was Kathleen Mooney. And she talked to us in episode 42, Rub Some Dirt in It. And she is so much fun. And I found her on a late night scroll session trying to learn more about gardening and specifically in my area in Texas. But she had just these nuggets of gardening wisdom that came packaged in 70s classic rock ballads behind her and like these funny quips and stuff. She's a hoot. And so it was really fun to have her on and be able to connect with her where we would never have been able to otherwise. And Courtney has since called her on the phone and asked her questions and had these back and forths with her, which is just so wonderful. So go give that a listen. I would even say, like, you don't have to have a green thumb or be inclined to start a garden, but it is really fun to learn. And it might equip you with just a little bit of information in another conversation to be able to carry it on a little longer.
Yes. And I think that's the thing, Carly, about this whole podcasting journey. We've got experts in their fields or people that are at least passionate about the topic they're talking about. And you can really find something to learn from anyone. I think that's really what's been super cool to me is like learning from people and finding some overlapping aspect of interest or connection, or just being willing to sit at somebody else's feet and let them talk to you about something they're passionate about and learning from them. I love that. And I love that you brought us Kathleen Mooney, because as you said, yes, I've called her since and I was like, Kathleen, I'm getting chickens, help me. And she gave me the funniest bit of advice I've ever heard. And I'll just go ahead and say it because it's hysterical. I told her that I was worried my dog was going to eat our chickens. And by the way, I said, I'm worried our dog is going to eat our chicken. And I meant chickens plural, but for some reason I thought chicken was the plural of chicken, kind of like moose is the plural of moose.
Or fish. Yeah,
fish is a plural of fish, right? There's certain words that you're like, I don't know, is fishes a word? Fishes isn't a word. It's just fish.
Only in the scriptures.
Oh, okay. Anyway, yeah, fishes and loaves. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, my chicken. And she was like, how many chickens do you, and like, she was like, chicken. I was like, oh, chickens. Okay.
Courtney is a grammar nerd. So that is really funny.
Anyway, yeah. So she said it in her amazing Texas Southern accent. And I don't even want to try and like butcher it. So I'm not going to say it the way she did, but it meant so much to me to have her say, if your dog eats one chicken, you tie that neck of the chicken around a string and then put that string around the dog's neck, because she will never go after another chicken after you leave that string on her neck for 2 weeks. We haven't had to do that to my dog yet, but I have that in my little brain as like a tickler. I can pull out that little bit of knowledge if I need to. It makes me just knowledgeable enough to be slightly dangerous. Like you said, even if you don't have a green thumb, you can store that bit of knowledge away. So anyway, any other recaps from season 1?
Oh yeah. Well, as you were saying, talking about the things that we could learn from them, I learned a lot from Rachel Homolak from episode 30, Meme Girls. That was really interesting because, again, never had met her in person. You had come across the Bluey Memes group,
yep,
which since I've joined and get good laughs out of. But what I loved learning about, even though we were talking about memes, really we were talking about connection and creating a space for other people to connect on similarities, which I know at the beginning we talked about how it's so much more important in person and things like that. There is such a place for social media and it can really buoy up our in-person interactions too. And so already knowing ahead of time, oh, you like Bluey? I like Bluey. Our kids like Bluey, but honestly
I like Bluey.
Yeah. So those were just 3 of the ones that I thought of just now, and all of them were so impactful.
I know.
And it was so fun, especially hair share.
Oh yeah, no, that one was not our finest episode, but it was fun. And that's the thing. Every episode is fun and it causes you to spark conversation in your life. And that's one thing. The most meaningful feedback that we've gotten for this podcast was actually from a sister within our community who said to us, I loved this most recent episode. My sister and I were listening to it while we were driving to the airport, and we kept having to pause the episode so that we could have our own conversation about what y'all were talking about. That's what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
We're not
That's
looking.
the best thing.
Yeah, we're not looking to preach at y'all as you're listening to our podcast. We are wanting you to feel this sisterhood and wanting you to hear something that makes you want to spark a conversation with somebody else, or that makes you feel motivated to try gardening or to look up a Bluey memes group, or something that will cause you to do something in your life that makes you feel more complete. And usually those kind of moments of more completion happen as you make connection. And that's why our whole theme this next season is connection, because we want you to pause the podcast and call somebody immediately. Don't feel like you have to finish the episode. Act on that personal inspiration in that moment and call a friend. If you're listening to the podcast while you have a friend in the car, great. Pause our podcast and make those connections, those real connections with real people. It's been such a privilege for us to get to talk with y'all. And even though we can't see your faces over these virtual airwaves, please know that we love you, we appreciate you, and we do pray for you. And we want to know who you are. So if you connect with us online, we will always receive that. But we also are not trying to put pressure on you to spend more time online to try and connect with us when we feel like the whole purpose of our podcast is to inspire y'all to make connections in your local communities.
So well said. I think that was actually one of the things I was scared about in doing a podcast, was that in saying I have a podcast, that people might think that I somehow think my words are so worth listening to, or that I consider myself an expert or something. And not the case. It's more that we can lift up these women and get to know each other, and those aspects of connection that are so good for all of us to be familiar with and grow from. So it's been really about growing than just about talking, right? I think our listening that we've been able to do during this has been way more impactful.
Exactly. Well, Carly, I think all that said, we can leave our sisters on that note with a come back next week plug, because like Carly said, we are not the experts, but we enjoy talking. And we do have an expert joining us next week for our episode about doing an emotional self-check and making sure that you are prepared to make connections in your life. So come back and join us next week as we talk to a skilled life coach who's going to give us some great tips on ways to listen better, and also traits and habits to avoid when making connections with others. So come back and join us next week, sisters. And don't forget to check out our show notes for any resources that we referenced today. I'll even include a link to Carly's basin climbing gym social media so you can connect with her there. And we'll also include the Hey Sister social media information so you can connect with us and follow us at the Hey Sister podcast on Instagram and Facebook. We are so grateful that we get to be sisters with y'all, and we hope you have a wonderful week, sisters. Pray for us as we hike the Grand Canyon this week, and we'll talk to y'all next Monday. Bye-bye. Bye. Oh, wait, I have to say, I just texted Mom, and she texted me back. Sausage making process, you win. You're so humble.
I knew it.
I know you knew it. Dang it. I'm so mad. But it's okay.
I'm like, what are you talking about? Bacon. Bacon. I mean, I like the sound of that, but
bacon sounds so much better. Sausage making.
Start your own phrase.